I bought her flowers. She was already in our bedroom with someone else. My name is Natalie. I am 36 years old, and I am going to tell you about the worst Tuesday of my life. It started with flowers, yellow tulip, specifically Sarah's favorite. I'd been passing the florist on Maple Street for months without stopping, always in a hurry, always with somewhere else to be. But that Tuesday morning, I left work 2 hours early. A slow day, a rare thing, the kind of afternoon that almost never happens in my line of work. And I walked past the florist and thought, why not? She'd been stressed lately. Work had been hard on her. We hadn't been connecting the way we used to. A small gesture. Something to say, I see you, I'm thinking about you, I'm still here. I paid $12 for the tulips, yet the woman behind the counter wrapped them in brown paper and tied them with twine, and said, "Lucky lady." I smiled and said, "Yeah, she is." I drove home thinking about nothing in particular. The radio was on. It was a nice day, one of those early September afternoons where the heat has finally started to back off, and the light goes golden in the late afternoon. I remember the light very clearly. I remember thinking it was a beautiful day. I pulled into our street and I saw the car, a black Audi parked 2 houses down from ours. I didn't recognize it. I noticed it the way you notice anything slightly out of place, briefly, without concern, and then I moved on. I pulled into the driveway. Sarah's car was there. Good, she was home. I got out with the tulips. I unlocked the front door. The house was quiet. There's a specific quality to a house that is quiet in the wrong way. Not the quiet of an empty house, not the quiet of someone asleep, but something else. A held breath quiet, a quality of stillness that doesn't feel restful. I noticed it the second I stepped inside, but I didn't know yet what I was noticing. I put my keys on the hook by the door. I called out, "Sarah, I'm home early." Nothing. I figured she was in the backyard, or in the bath, or had her headphones in. I went to the kitchen to put the tulips in water, found a vase under the sink, filled it, arranged the flowers, stood back and looked at them, thought about how she'd smile when she saw them. Then I heard something, a sound from upstairs, muffled, indistinct, the kind of sound that a house makes when it's occupied, except both floors were supposed to be empty because Sarah hadn't answered when I called. I stood very still in the kitchen. I told myself, she has her headphones in. She's watching something on her laptop. She didn't hear you. I told myself that. I almost believed it. I walked to the bottom of the stairs. I want to try to explain what the next 30 seconds felt like, because I don't think I've ever found the right words for it, and I've tried them many times since. There is a moment when you are walking towards something you don't yet know, but some part of you has already understood, where everything slows down. Not dramatically, not like in the movies where the whole world goes soft focus and silent, just a slowing, a heaviness, each step up the stairs taking slightly longer than the one before it. The bedroom door was not fully closed, just slightly open, the way it sometimes is when you don't pull it all the way shut. I could hear, from behind it, something that I cannot describe to you and will not try to. I pushed the door open. I am not going to describe what I saw in detail, not because I don't remember it. I remember every single thing about that moment with a clarity that I would give almost anything to lose, but because some things belong only to the person who lived them. What I will tell you is this. My wife of 7 years was in our bedroom. She was not alone. The man was someone I had never seen before in my life. Dark hair, mid-30s, the kind of face that becomes instantly meaningless when you see it in the wrong place, at the wrong time. He went completely still when the door opened, like a thing that freezes when it's caught. Sarah looked at me. I looked at her. I was still holding the tulips. Nobody said anything for what felt like a very long time, but was probably 4 or 5 seconds. Then Sarah said my name. Just my name. Then Natalie, in a voice I had never heard from her before. Not guilt, not exactly. Something past guilt, something that had been waiting. I looked at the tulips in my hand. Yellow, brown paper, twine. I put them on the dresser, very carefully, very deliberately, like setting something down that might break. Then I turned around and walked back down the stairs. I heard her say my name again from behind the bedroom door. I heard movement. Fast, urgent, the sound of a situation being scrambled out of. I heard her voice and then his voice, low, saying something I couldn't make out. I went to the kitchen. I sat down at the table. I put my hands flat on the surface. I sat there for a long time. She came downstairs in about 10 minutes. Alone. She had gone, I don't know how, out the back or while I was sitting there not looking. It didn't matter. She was wearing her robe, and her hair was different than it had been when I left for work that morning, and she sat down across from me at the kitchen table, and I looked at her face and thought, how long? Not who, not why. Just how long? I asked her. She told me. 8 months. 8 months. I sat with that number while she talked. And she did talk, because Sarah has always filled silence with words, has always believed that if she can just find the right explanation, then understanding will follow. And I listened to all of it, and none of it landed. The words came in and went somewhere that wasn't quite my brain. 8 months. While I had been coming home to dinners she made, and weekends we spent together, and a marriage that I had believed, genuinely and completely believed, was solid. While I had been planning a trip to Portugal for our anniversary, while I had been buying her tulips, I asked her who he was. A coworker, she said. It didn't mean anything. She didn't know how it happened. I looked at the tulips in the vase on the counter, yellow against the white kitchen wall. I said, I should have kept driving. She started to cry. I don't say that to be cruel. She was genuinely devastated. I believe that. I believe she loved me in whatever way she was still capable of loving me by that point. But the tears hit me as information, not as something that reached me. I stood up. I said I needed to take a walk. She asked me to please come back so we could talk. I said I would come back. I walked for 2 hours. I am going to tell you what those 2 hours were like, because I think it matters. For the first 20 minutes, I didn't think anything. I just walked. Down our street and around the block and through the park at the end of the neighborhood and back out the other side. My body moving because bodies move, because forward is the only direction available when standing still is not an option. Then it started arriving, not in a wave. I had expected a wave, had braced for it, but it didn't come that way. It came in pieces. Specific memories, specific moments, re-examined in a new light. The Thursday, 3 months ago, when she said she was working late, and I made dinner and watched TV alone and fell asleep on the couch. The weekend trip she took in June to visit her college friend, which I hadn't questioned at all, which I had encouraged, which I had helped her pack for. The way she had been on her phone more, which I had chalked up to a stressful project at work. The occasional distance, which I had attributed to fatigue, to the natural ebb of a long marriage, to things that happen and pass. 8 months of moments I had misread. I sat on a bench in the park and watched a dog chase a ball and thought about the tulips. $12, brown paper, twine, the woman at the florist saying, "Lucky lady." I thought, I don't know how to be in my own house right now. And then, quietly, underneath that, I don't know who I've been living with. I want to tell you something about that walk that I haven't told many people. About 40 minutes in, I passed a couple coming the other way on the path. Maybe late 20s, his hand in hers, both of them talking and laughing about something completely inside their own world. They didn't notice me at all. I watched them pass and I thought about Sarah and me at that age, early in the relationship, before the marriage, before the house and the routines, and the 7 years of accumulated life, the version of us that held hands on sidewalks. I thought, did she stop loving me, or did she stop loving who we had become? I don't know the answer to that even now. I'm not sure it changes anything, but I think about it. I went back, as I said I would. Sarah was still at the kitchen table. The tulips were still in the vases. She had made tea. 2 mugs, one for me, waiting. I sat down. We talked for 4 hours. I asked everything I needed to ask, and she answered everything, to her credit. She didn't hedge, didn't minimize more than the first few minutes, told me the things I asked, even when they were hard to say and harder to hear. 8 months. His name was Derek. They met at a conference. It had started slowly, and then it hadn't been slow anymore. She said she was sorry. She said it many times, in many different ways, and I believed her each time. Sorrow was not the problem. The problem was the 8 months. The problem was the tulips. The problem was that I had built 7 years of a life with someone, and that life had a version I didn't know about, running parallel, whole and real and hidden. At the end of the 4 hours, I told her I needed to sleep somewhere else that night. She nodded. She said she understood. I took a bag and drove to my sister Lauren's house across town. I sat on her couch and told Lauren what had happened, and she didn't say much, which was exactly right, which was what I needed. She made me a drink and sat with me, and we watched whatever was on TV, and at some point I fell asleep on Lauren's couch with my shoes still on. In the morning, I drove back to the house while Sarah was at work. I sat at the kitchen table again. The tulips were still in the vase. She had left them there. I looked at them for a long time. Then I threw them away. That was 14 months ago. I want to tell you what comes after because I think people who share stories like this tend to stop at the worst moment. The door opening, the faces, the tulips on the dresser, and leave you there, which isn't the whole story. Sarah and I tried. I want to say that clearly. We tried for 4 months. Couples therapy, real conversations, the uncomfortable and necessary work of trying to understand how 2 people who loved each other arrived at a Tuesday like that one. I don't regret trying. I think it was the right thing to do. But some things, once seen, cannot be unseen. And I found in those 4 months of trying that I had lost the ability to be fully present in my own marriage. Not because I didn't love her. I did. I think I still do, in some version of the word. But because some part of me was always back at that door, always standing there with the tulips. We separated in January. The divorce was finalized in July. I live in an apartment now on the 3rd floor with a balcony that looks out over the city. It's smaller than the house. It's quieter. The good kind of quiet this time. I cook for myself most nights, which I've gotten better at. I run in the mornings. I have started slowly to feel like a person who is building something rather than a person who is surviving something. I still walk past that florist on Maple Street. I haven't bought flowers since. Maybe I will again someday. I think I will. I think that version of me, The one who stops on a nice September afternoon and buys yellow tulips because why not? Because she'd like them, because small gestures matter. I think that version of me is still in there somewhere, just waiting for the right time to come back. I don't know when that will be, but I want to say one more thing before I go. If you are the person in this story who bought the flowers, if you are the one who came home early with good intentions and found something you were never supposed to find, I want you to know that what comes after is survivable. Not easy, not clean, not the life you planned, but survivable. And if you are the other person in this story, the one who was in that bedroom, I'm not going to tell you what you are. You already know. What I will say is this. The person you hurt didn't deserve to find out that way. Nobody does. I still walk past that florist on Maple Street. I haven't bought flowers since. Maybe I will again someday. I think I will. I think that version of me, the one who stops on a nice September afternoon and buys yellow tulips because why not? Because she'd like them, because small gestures matter. I think that version of me is still in there somewhere, just waiting for the right moment to come back. I don't know when that will be, but I'm not in a hurry. My name is Natalie, and this is my story.